Oh me, oh me, oh me, oh my. Oh me, oh me, oh me, oh my. I like that. Good afternoon and welcome to day 2 of Longworth Theater's New Works Festival. I am your host, Azaria Samuels, the Audience Development and Corporate Partnership Coordinator here at Longworth Theater. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am excited to introduce to you Strength Within Me Virtual Brunch. Today, I am joined by some of the most poised and phenomenal ladies in New Haven, Connecticut. Strength Within Me connects the community. It provides a conversation for the community to attach application of the raw and real emotions that individuals push through to produce the dynamic work of the arts. Strength Within Me is the backstory to the art, to art. Much like an artist will have to define the character in which they are portraying. Today, we will discuss the issues featured in yesterday's The Merit System and for tonight's Dream House. Now, I will turn it over to Cheyenne Barboza. She is the Community and Literacy Associate here at Longworth Theater.
Thank you, Zaria. As we begin today, we acknowledge that the indigenous people and nations that for generations have stewarded the lands and waterways of what we now call the state of Connecticut. We honor and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these peoples and nations and this land. We are standing on the unceded territory of the Paugussett, Quinnipiac, and Wappinger peoples. We remind ourselves that along with stolen land came stolen people. It is our responsibility to the future to know our past. And now, a special treat from our restaurant partners over at Bella's Cafe in New Haven, Connecticut.
I just add a little bit to start. You can add whatever you like. You can use a vegetable oil, but I prefer garlic oil. So we make our special blend of oil. Okay, so now that it's starting to come together, you can see how it's starting to thicken. And we cooked a little bit of our roux out. So now I add our chicken stock. So I like to add a little bit of chicken stock and incorporate it a little at a time, just to get it creamy. Sometimes it has a tendency to lump up a little bit. It doesn't. a little butter, pieces of butter in there. That's what makes it nice. When the steam hits it, they expand. And that's the steam creating the layers between the steam and the folding. I prefer to fold it several times. Sometimes I get more flour on me than I get on my biscuits. After the fold, I can tell by the way it feels. It's really smooth. So I just measure the height of my ring. One more time. We make these fresh every day. So we'll make them fresh, and then we freeze them on sheet pans. So we have them all ready to go when we bake them every day. For 44 years now, 3 generations of cooks and diners, and I have an Italian and Greek background. My parents didn't think I should go into it, but it was my passion that I discovered later on in my life, and I think that's what gets me up every morning to come to work. It's a grueling industry. It's very difficult at times. So if you don't have the passion, it's hard to press through. And the strength that I've gotten, I believe, is actually from my grandmother, to persevere, to push through no matter what, and never to give up. So even through the hard season, like I said, later on, I decided, oh my God, I just love the creativity of it. Thank God, because like I said, you have to endure. And I've always wanted my son to be a part of it. But young as he was, he had no interest. And now he does work with me on Saturdays. He's here and he does our expediting. And he does an absolutely fabulous job. And his personality comes right through. So I'm so proud. He would be the 4th generation. And I know he gets his strength from us as well. And it's just a great thing. I mean, I come from a line of strong matriarchal women who, my grandmother back in the day, I'm 61. So my grandmother had built her own homes, had several restaurants, and back in that day, that was unheard of. So to come from that lineage is actually a blessing, to say the least. So I am living a dream.
about you all, but I am starving. Thank you to the entire staff at Bella's Cafe, located in New Haven, Connecticut. Thank you, Rose, for sharing your strength. Now, I would like to take the time to introduce our magnificent panelists for this afternoon. The first panelist that I will introduce to you all would be Heather Latora. Heather is the president and CEO of Meerkat Inc. In 1985, Heather obtained an internship at Meerkat Inc. Throughout her course of study at Southern Connecticut State University and years later, she has advanced to serve as the president and CEO. When Heather began her career at Meerkat, there were about 35 staff working to support 50 people with developmental disabilities and other barriers to independence and opportunity. Today, Meerkat employs over 750 staff statewide to support over 1,000 people. Outside of Meerkat, Heather has served as an adjunct faculty member at Southern and has also held classes at the University of Bridgeport's IDEAL program. Heather currently serves on the board of directors for the Workers' Compensation Trust, the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, Milestones Behavioral Health, and treasurer of the Serathimus International Greater Hartford chapter. The next panelist that I will introduce today will be Elisa Bowens Mercado. Elisa is the CEO of Rhythm Brewing and the first Black woman in the state to become a craft beer brewer. Her Rhythm Lager is inspired by her grandmothers, who both enjoyed drinking Miller's Light beer. The beer is currently sold in and around Greater New Haven. The next panelist that I will introduce today will be Marina Marlejo. Marina co-founded DreamKit app. After graduating from Yale School of Public Health and an anti-poverty advocate that is changing how we engage with communities experiencing homelessness, Marina is courageously innovating in a space that has seen very little innovation over the last decade. She believes homeless agencies are overworked and understaffed, and the current antiquated systems cannot adapt to the rapidly changing needs of folks experiencing homelessness. Marina sees the power of technology, real-time data, and human-centered design to create sustainable solutions for the vulnerable and incredibly resilient population. And finally, the last panelist that I will introduce today will be Shayna Schneider. Shayna is the founder of Fit Style by Shayna and the creator of Fit Style, Your Life approach to fitness that bring fitness into everyday life. By using habit-forming principles, your schedule and living spaces, she shows you how to find opportunities for movement and exercise that fit your life. As a fitness educator and author, Shayna has been featured in national magazines, websites, and fitness blogs, and is seen regularly on WTNH News 8. Prior to working on Fit Style by Shayna full-time, she's worked for over a decade, holding several leadership positions at Yale University, where she received her BA. Please help me welcome our panelists for this afternoon. I am thrilled to be the moderator for this dynamic group of ladies, and you all look so beautiful for participating in day 2 of this festival, of this New Works Festival.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with all these women as well. So
yes. And I hope you folks at home are feeling good. And if you're like me, you probably made a great mimosa. I hope you all jump in the chat room and let us know your thoughts and questions during today's discussion. I will make sure to read them out to the panelists. So now I'm going to jump right into our questions related to the issues in both the merit system, which we watched yesterday, and Dream House, which we will watch later on this evening after the jam session. So ladies, my first question will be, what is the American dream to you? And Shayna, you can kick us off with this.
Okay, not a small question, that's for sure. And I think in this current time that we're in, it also is something that I was kind of rethinking about. So what I would say for myself right now, if I take the idea of the American dream as that, as an idea or an attitude for myself, then the answer is yes. If I can go after my dreams, whatever they may be, I am actually living that right now. I mean, here I am, someone who has created her own business, working on it full time, being a woman also, my gender at this point isn't, an issue. This is my dream to help people bring fitness into their everyday life and have clients work one-on-one. I'm doing that and making money at it. So that's, exciting. And so I want to take that, as a win. And I'm also the, ultimate optimist when it comes to things. But I will say that, when I look at some of the realities of our world and when I kind of look at how we've defined the American dream in other ways as more of a real thing, right? Where people have said, you have a house, kids, plenty of money, there's no issues there. I think that's where things start to break down. And I might not say absolutely wholehearted yes, right? There are definitely things that you have to decide to either sacrifice or compromise or say, I'm not going to have this and I'm going to have this instead. If I am looking at it in comparison to, what previous generations have been able to do and say, okay, my success is going to be greater than previous generations. That's also where I think it's falling short. Like, I cannot say that I've leaped bounds above where my parents have, what my parents have achieved. And I think that's really where we are right now. So that American dream is yes, shattered, maybe needs to be redefined. But hopefully, I would not say that it's completely lost.
Yes, thank you so much. And now let's see here.
Oh, I would love to add something too to Shayna. Okay. I mean, what you're saying is exactly how I think about the American dream. And I feel so lucky to be a part of this, right? Like millennial generation where a lot of us are prioritizing careers and lifestyles that allow us to have both our purpose and passion aligned, right? So what does it mean to pursue academia or careers or just whatever you want to do in life, and to ensure that you always have a touch point and in mind what your passion is so that it can be overlaid with what you're doing. And I'm just really, really proud of young people for breaking that expectation of, you don't have to go and do exactly what your parents did or want you to do in your life. And you're allowed to reimagine what a healthy, happy, successful future is for you. And I think technology and the existence of social media has allowed us to see so many different careers that maybe our parents or grandparents weren't exposed to. And so, right, like, what does it mean to always be exposed to people living out their dreams and their passions and wanting that for yourself and being selfish and like, I'm going to prioritize that for myself. So exactly what you're saying, Shane, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is so interesting as far as people starting out thinking, and I'm generations before you. So they're like, oh, well, Heather, you should be a teacher because you like to help people. Your passion is helping people. You should be a teacher because that's where women were those days. And to now go to work 34 years later at the same organization and being surrounded by people that take pride in their jobs every day and make an impact on others and their community, that's my dream. And it's definitely different than what the dream was laid out for me years ago, and being able to live my passion every day. You're right. That is great.
Yeah. And I think it has to do with this newfound understanding and emphasis about mental health in the workplace, right? Like, how are we always talking about And why are we always talking about mental health? Because it's important. And if people are healthy, both physically and mentally, they'll bring their best full selves into the workplace. And so I just get, again, really lucky to be a part of this generation that, mental health is always a conversation. And you can talk to your boss about not having a great day and needing extra support, and having the emotional intelligence to vocalize your needs and how you want to be supported is just such a beautiful reality to live in, especially right for women in the workforce.
Mm-hmm. And, I will, Elisa, go ahead.
Oh, it looks like, just a second, Lisa, let's see. Okay, go again, Elisa, because I think you were muted. No, let's see here. Well, while we try to get Elisa some sound here, Shayna, you can go right in, and we're gonna work on the back end. Sorry for the issues here.
Yeah. No worries. I was just gonna, talk a little bit more about, that American dream, and I will have to admit I'm part of Generation X, so I like to straddle the line over into millennial. But I think that what we have here is the ability to define it now for ourselves. What is the American dream? And what we're seeing is that we're redefining it, right? If we look at how we had talked about it in the past and what those touch points of success were. So on the kind of non-literal level, just the idea, can you go after that American dream? Can you, create an app that can help so many people? Can you imagine a totally new job that may not even exist right now? Absolutely. But in the realities of it, when you are trying to actually achieve that dream, I think that's where it gets really messy, right? It gets a lot harder depending on where you are in the socioeconomic spectrum here in the United States, because we're talking about the American dream. Yeah. So, as much as I like to be idealistic, we have to kind of bring it back to reality in a lot of ways too. And each person's experience is different in that point at which you're starting from as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that brings me to my next question here. So thank you, ladies. Please define strength in your own words. Marina, you can kick us off. I saw you going in.
Wow, what a question. I do want to recognize too, Shayna, what you're saying about not everyone has the opportunity to reimagine or express their imagination in what a future looks like and what the American dream looks like for them, because there's so many structural and systemic barriers in place. So I think I would say first and foremost, strength is having the courage to think about a better world for yourself and how you take part in that, right? And again, having the emotional intelligence to know, like, having strength and having courage can be kind of scary sometimes. And it's okay. Like, you're allowed to experience the spectrum of human emotions. And it's what you do with that potential fear or that potential, like, I might fail, I don't know about this, and how you are expressing some strategies that work for yourself to kind of get there. I know, at least for me, I've experienced so much imposter syndrome, and it's taken me a bunch of strength to try and overcome that. Like, honestly, just even entering into Yale and Yale spaces and academia, like I never really saw myself in those types of worlds, and having conversations with people who really have so much power and privilege. And so, at least for me, when I was at the School of Public Health, I remember one strategy that I did to try and overcome this imposter syndrome was writing down jargon, vocabulary, ideas that I found really impressive from my peers and professors. And so at the end of the day, I would have these notes in this notebook of things and ideas that I really idolized. And that made me a little scared, but if I kept reading them and I kept kind of trying to memorize and think in the ways that my peers were, that my professors were, I started to feel myself become a little bit more one with the environment that initially made me so nervous and so intimidated. So like imposter syndrome in academia, and then also starting your own business, scary, right? Like I don't have an MBA. I have beautiful mentors who have helped push me along the way, but especially when you're so early on, it is so easy to fail, and that's where it takes that strength to say, okay, I'm allowed to feel scared, but I'm going to use the strength within me to keep pushing, right? And to keep if you refuse to fail, then you won't, right? Like, and bad things will happen and small failures will happen. But if you're always reframing it in your mind of like, okay, maybe someone would see this as a failure, but I see it as a learning opportunity. And I see it as something where I can just pivot and, okay, that door's closed. That means 3 more are open. So overall, right, it's constantly reframing these failures and making sure that your North Star, whatever that may be, is close to your heart and you protect it at all costs.
Definitely. Thank you.
So I will also add to that, because that idea of, failure, I would kind of look at it from the sense of, to have strength. I was thinking about it kind of has 2 parts. One is that there is some force or pressure that is kind of coming against you, right? In some way, there's an endurance against that pressure that you see, and kind of in the fitness world too, right? When you have like a hand weight or something, when you want to build strength, right? You're holding, you have to lift against some sort of weight, right? That's there to build that strength. But, it's not just endurance and kind of like, I'm gonna go, sort of like, again, with another little fitness reference here, but like if you're holding a plank, right? If it's a bad position, you're going to end up hurting yourself. I don't want you to just hold the plank indefinitely and be like, I'm going to endure, I'm going to do it anyway. It's about endurance and thriving at the same time. I think those 2 things together, it's being able to see, something better also coming out of it, making the most of that situation. For me, thinking about, strength, obviously you need strength for building a company. I know I am actually, I've seen Elisa through multiple businesses. I mean, she is an amazing example, I think, of strength, and I will let her talk momentarily, but I did want to share just one other example of kind of strength that I have seen where you're pushing against something and still making the best of it. I've seen this a lot of times with people who have been close to me who've experienced cancer in particular, where, 2 examples. One, my mom, who might be watching, knows that she had gone through breast cancer. And even though there was that piece that she was pushing against something negative, the strength was amazing because she still was thriving through that, working, being able to participate in an organization, New Haven Reads, that she was working at the time. And even the woman who had created New Haven Reads, same thing. There was that kind of life-threatening piece that was there. But she was not just enduring, not just staying. These 2 women who I've seen, not just kind of, I'm going to just survive. It was also thriving. And so that strength, seeing that as an example, is huge. And so I think being able to kind of process that, to define it for myself, that's strength, right? Together.
It's just so empowering just to, jump on the call with these dynamic women, and it really is strength. I think if we've survived this year, I think we are all trying to get to that finish. If you have your eye on where you're going, that's just strength enough. If you say, I'm not going to stop until I get there. I don't care if I run out of gas, emotional gas, physical gas. I don't care if I run out of water. You are psychologically and physically dehydrated. Whatever it's going to take for you to get to that end goal is just, what we have to do. And it's about, again, like Shayna and all the ladies have explained, it's about pivoting and what are we doing right now to continue that mission, to make sure that we are changing the world, we are diversifying the world, we are preparing others through our strengths. And I think that's what it's all about. And so I think once if I get up and know that I'm not on this mission just for me solely, but I'm on a mission to either open up doors in the brewing industry or open up doors like Shayna in the physical, workplace, or like Heather, who has like her. I mean, I've worked with that agency and before, and I love it. And they, they're pivoting, they're pursuing. And Marina, it's just, like you said, your take on all of this new stuff, like the millennials with breaking barriers. Right now, we're all breaking glass ceilings in a huge way. So I think we are all looking at something completely new and completely different. But it's who is going to stay the course and who is going to get to that finish line and beyond. Because once you get to the finish line, that's when the work really starts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I feel that strength absolutely has to come from yourself. I will not hold my breath and wait for someone to give me strength. I will not give permission to anyone to give me weakness. No way. So that is all my responsibility. So again, Shayna, in fitness terms, I have to work out my strength. I can't wake up with it and say, okay, I'm ready. I'm a bodybuilder. I have my strength. What I have done every day, and people laugh at me, but I always put something on my calendar that's going to be totally out of my comfort zone. Like right now, this is not easy for me, guys, just so you know. And but that kind of thing, thanks. When you schedule that time to make sure you're going to knock on a door and say, how are we going to do business together? How are we going to make this community better? Talking to a legislator that doesn't agree with what you're thinking about or dreaming about, and convincing her or trying to, all those kinds of things are so outside of my comfort zone, but they have to happen for growth, or else you're stagnant and nothing happens. So great things come out of it. So I have to schedule that uncomfortable moment in my life almost every day. And that's helped me through so many years of bad and adversity, and brings out the best.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you, ladies, so much. And even for myself, I can agree, and I have to say that I have to wake up in the morning and I push through. That's the only way to get through the day. That's the only way to for me to be able to make a change in my community. And I have to feel it. I have to believe in it. And so me digging down deep and telling myself, you go, girl, you got this today. Those are things that gives me strength. And I would say that I thank my mom for, pushing me to go harder, not just doing the bare minimum, and just digging deep. So thank you so much. I do have a question from the chat. Would you say that strength is self-defined? And Heather, you can kick us off with that one.
Absolutely. Everyone's strength is different. Everything's self-defined in this area. And absolutely for me, and in different stages of your life, it's self-defined as well. So strength was, getting through high school and seeing, winning a chess game, but the man flipped over the chess set and said a girl did not just beat me, and I had to find strength from that. But actually, again, that made me better going forward. So really through your experiences and through your lifetime, it changes as well, I think.
Yes.
I will say though, as much as I appreciate and I think that it's important to find the uniqueness and have that and those different experiences, there is something that is consistent across the board when it comes to strength, because when we talk about it, we all kind of go, oh yeah, you recognize it. Do you know what I mean? There's something that is similar across the board. What that is exactly, you know, I think I would go back to kind of seeing where you were coming up against something and you still made the most of it. Like you still took the next level. You still had growth from it. There's something there. So I don't know that I have the actual definition, but I will just say that there must be something that's there that we kind of all have that's kind of universal that we can identify in that way, even though it might be expressed in different ways.
Yes, yes. Now, I mean, we kind of answered this question, but how did you find strength when striving for your current position in life? Any takers on that one?
You know, I'll jump in. It's funny because my pivoting actually started back probably in the 90s. And I ran a construction company. So I was a general contractor for about 13 years with the family business, which is still going strong. But that led me to salsa dancing. That led me, and we are celebrating 20 years at the House of Salsa this year. We are ecstatic. Thank you. Yeah. But the reason why we have done this for 20 years is because I had the strength to, when I was on a business trip in Puerto Rico for the construction, when I came home, I was willing at 30 years old to give that completely up. After 13 years. And I said, you know what? I hope I've opened enough doors for women and people of color in the construction industry. And I just said peace of mind or financial security at 30. And I chose peace of mind. And my peace of mind and that decision led me to 20 years this year for the salsa. But I will tell you, that gave me the complete goal and passion to get into brewing, because I said, you know, what do I do when I'm not salsa dancing? I love beer, and, you know, of course you have to drink responsibly. But when I said that was like a passion going to these different breweries, but then when I noticed there were not a lot of women and not a lot of people of color at all in these festivals, I said, you know what, there needs to be a change. I said, and if I could pivot from construction to salsa, I can pivot from salsa to brewing. And I mean, it's where you take your strength, and it's how you define what you're willing to try to achieve. But if you're going to do it for a whole of a community, I think it has been, for me in my life's journey, those 3 transitions were all well worth it, and I would not change one thing.
Oh, that is awesome. Yes.
I guess I would add, in the sense of thinking about how did I find strength to do kind of what I'm doing now. It's a combination of that internal drive, because you have that motivator, something that's outside of you to make the world better, to help improve people's lives, but also a reliance on other people. And there is a strength and vulnerability, right, in that. And yeah. I will not say that I was not like that for many years. I thought reliance on oneself, it was like all kind of internal, and that has to break down. And there's a strength in that, in being able to ask for help, right? And there's no way that you build a business without asking for help in different ways, right? Like pretty much there's nothing, not a whole lot in life that isn't about, you know, that I think some community elements and asking for help. So I have been really blessed with people in my life, whether those have been colleagues, friends, family members, who I have been able to bounce ideas off of, or give me the first break, right? In the sense of like, yes, I have to do a workshop for the first time, and someone's got to give me an opportunity to do it. I can't just give the workshop to myself, right? So, or the class or that kind of thing. So that strength to strive and to keep going in a difficult space in building a business has really come from a community of people, a network.
Yeah.
It does take community.
Absolutely. And the culture of naming people's strengths out loud to them, like in real time, I think is so important. And to always emphasize like affirmations, right? Like if you never really know, and I think all of us have had mentors in our life where we can think back to that like one liner where they told us and a light bulb went off and we were like, you know what? Yes, like that is going to help me drive and help me like continue my passions and continue what I'm doing. And so again, like it takes a community effort, and to make sure that we're always like hyping each other up and recognizing the strengths within other people and telling it to their faces so that they can also, you know, see what they look like from an outsider's perspective. And sometimes there's a lot of self-doubt and negative self-talk, but if someone else is describing your strength to you, it helps you reorient in your mind. Like, actually, I am really strong.
Yes. Oh, that is so good to hear. So many times, there's a lot of folks that think that, you know, that's stepping on toes or crossing the line. But those are the little things, those simple things right there that sparks and make a difference in folks' hearts. So yes, thank you so much for that, Marina.
Yeah. And just like redefining what professionalism looks like, right? If you have your own business, you're allowed to create your own company culture. And if a part of that is affirmations and calling out people's strengths and just, you know, redefining how you want to live a healthy professional life, then as a founder, as an executive director, you're allowed to do that. And I think I'm just really, really grateful to introduce some of those practices in DreamKit and into other spaces that I'm at.
Thank you. Yes. And that takes me, well, so now I'm going to go into the next question. Okay. So ladies, how have race and gentrification impacted the community that you are working with and the city where you are from? Since we are talking now about our community here, let's jump into this. And Elisa, take us away.
All right, so that's a really big, passionate question. So I'm going to try to dive into this in just a few segments. But I will tell you, my community has been incredible, and I'm going back. My whole entrepreneurial kind of journey that spans, you know, since the 90s. And what you invest in your community, or what you bring to your community, or what you offer your community is so important. You're a reflection of what you give back, or you try to give back. And so, you know, with the House of Salsa, it was always that, you know, let's get people in here. Let's get them emotionally fit. And Shayna, I know, can attest to this, but it was just a bigger about what does the community need, and how can we provide it through that exercise, that health, and that wellness. So if we can't keep a community well and healthy through exercise or dance, then you know, we're not doing our part, because that is a big piece. But we need to just focus on programs. I think more programming of what people actually need to survive more now than, you know, than ever. And then let me fast forward to my other, you know, the other business. You know, I want to support the community by having employment opportunities. I want communities to know that a Black girl in the state of Connecticut was the first brewer in the history. And I want a lot more Alisas running around here in that industry, because not only, it's not just about the liquid that goes in the can, it's about creating employment opportunities. It's about creating manufacturing jobs. It's a bigger picture than a can of beer for me. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Let's be very frank. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in our communities, especially when it comes to race. I think if we can all just think of that picture of how can I, you know, get people involved? How can I get them employed? How can I get them into science, the programming to, you know, generational wealth? That's what I'm going to leave us with. And I'm going to pass it on to some of the other ladies. We need to find things like that for our communities. Because without that, this cycle will continue and continue and continue, and we really don't want that.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Yes.
So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I went to school, junior high and high school in Coney Island. I went to an experimental high school, actually no grades. So it was just pass or fail. And we took classes like rock history and music and dance. And it was a great high school. I think they switched it back to grades now. Actually, Spike Lee graduated 10 years before I did from that high school. It was great. So what I learned, because there was no competition, there wasn't even a football game. Like I didn't know that till I came here about football games and competition and stuff, is that everyone's value and everyone's diversity was our advantage. And we created together, we danced together, we sang together, made music together. It's awesome. And then I came to Connecticut to go to college at 16 years old, because in New York, they get you out of the school as fast as possible. And I landed in New Haven. And I was ready for the fight, because people with disabilities were living in institutions. They were not living in the community. They were not working in the community. They either, their families kept them home, or they lived in our Southbury Training School or Mansfield, or they were shipped out of state. And so that was my passion. And people were moving out into the community now, and I was going to help do that. And that's what I was so lucky to do at Marrakesh, who was founded by actually 2 Yale students, women who said people with disabilities have to be part of our community. They have the same rights as you and I, and they have to live and work and dream and have the American dream. So that's how I started out. Then after opening group home after group home, some neighborhoods aren't really excited when you're like, oh, we're opening a group home next door or something. You get some pushback. And I always thought it's like, oh, well, the people who are moving in are wonderful. You'll get to meet them. They're not dangerous. They're not, don't worry. And then one day, I'll never forget being at a town hall meeting and seeing the neighbors saying, well, you are going to have Black staff working next door to me. And that was like a punch in the face. I never thought in a million years that this is what I'd be dealing with. And, came out fighting about that too. I just like, okay, switch gears, but same gears, is like, what is going on here? And continue to fight and also though educate. And now our neighbors love us, even in the home that at first they didn't. And you know what? And the neighbors that don't like us, they move away pretty quick. So it's good. We actually are good for the neighborhood.
Thank you. That I can so relate on so many things on there. So thank you so much on that. Any of you other ladies here want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I think I'll add a little bit. So if we're talking about race, talking about gentrification, like all of those are such upstream factors to youth homelessness. I mean, like the Black and brown people experience homelessness at higher rates. And as, gentrification grows, people are pushed out of their houses. I mean, there's very clear paths as to those two concepts and youth homelessness. And so in my work, I feel hopeful that, especially over this past summer with the death of George Floyd, that racism is more top of mind for folks. And I really want to just keep pushing people to do the work. And even if it's not sexy and it's hard and, you have to unlearn a lot of things within how you've been taught to move through space and see your power and privilege in the world. But I do feel hopeful that people are doing the work and will continue to do so, even when it's not glamorous, right? When you can't really post it on your social media or talk about it with anyone and everyone, like you have to make sure that this type of mindset continues for generations to come. So I do feel hopeful.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. And that's a good word. I'll use hopeful. I will say I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful in this moment. I'm hopeful for the next generation. And we do have strength together. And so with us, pushing through and making sure we use our voices in our communities and in our communities, outside of our communities, that's what it's about. And so thank you.
Yeah. And the only thing that I would, I guess, piggyback off of that and emphasize is the conversation. Right, because what I would see, particularly in my community, because I will say, so I grew up in California, but I like to say that New Haven is my adopted hometown. So I've, been here now for, I guess, a couple decades, actually. But what I see about when we use these words like race and gentrification, I see it creating a bit of a chasm within the community, because it tends to be that it's all extreme. It's haves and have-nots. It's here or there. And it is messy, right? What, Heather just said, she went to a high school where it was like your race and your experience could be an asset, right? These differences are an asset, right? Whereas in another context, it's more complicated, right? And it has challenges in this piece. And with gentrification, also the idea of improving a neighborhood, housing in different ways. Is it all negative? No. Is it all positive? No. But having the ability to have these conversations where everything doesn't have to be an either or, I think is really important. And it's challenging. It's not easy to do. And it takes the work that, Marina was talking about. And so I think that if we can keep having these conversations and hopefully bringing us together, and it's more of a we, as it comes to all of these things that we're working on, the better and the stronger we're going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you, Shayna. And that was honest. I really appreciate that. My last and final question for you all will be, how has assimilating into personal and or professional environments impacted your life? Please share an experience. And Marina, you can jump us on that one.
It's interesting because when I hear assimilation, I sometimes think of it as a positive thing and sometimes think of it as a negative thing. I think it all really depends on what our standards of culture are, what we're trying to be more like, right? Like as we assimilate into something, are we assimilating into Western culture and losing our roots and losing our history and losing some of our ideals? Or are we assimilating into other people's cultures and trying to learn more things? So at least for me, in terms of Dream Kit and how I've been able, I think, to assimilate in as much, I actually want to use a different word, and I want to use empathize, because I don't have experience or lived experience with homelessness. And I try to expose myself to populations who can teach me what it's like without me ever feeling like I'm taking away your narrative or taking away your strength and your power and your resilience in that. And so for me, and just trying to better understand and empathize with these folks has been difficult, because I clearly don't know, but helpful enough because they have the patience with me to be able to do so. So, I mean, overall, that was kind of long-winded, but assimilating is always being aware at your blind spots and knowledge gaps that you have, and making an active, conscious effort to fill those with people who have lived experience, right? Like those are the ones who are the holders of truth, and they should be given, I think, more power and more attention when seeking out questions, right? Don't go to the research or academics. I mean, sure, that's a supplemental opportunity to learn, but go to people who have experience, because they truly have done the work and know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So I will talk again, because apparently I do like to talk. But I think Marina, I made a good point where it's assimilating has those two sides to it, right? When we hear that word, where it's like, ooh, should I not? And I will say that when I was thinking about this, a couple of things came to mind. One is, often if you've ever done some of those team building exercises where it's like escape from an island, and you do it once on your own, and then you do it again in a group, and you find that if you do it in the group, you have a higher likelihood of escaping the island and actually like surviving. So the idea of working in a group or a community and being stronger, there is some assimilation that you have to do in order to figure out how to actually work together, I think. For me, it was a huge opportunity to actually lead a trip, taking the Yale president to Brazil. And I did not know anything really about the country, and I needed to learn the language. I needed to understand how you interact, the cultural, responses, these kinds of things. So I needed to assimilate in different ways in order to make sure that that program went well and went smoothly. And I will say the benefit of that has turned into lifelong friends, and experience that was unbelievable in all, the best ways. That's the, I think, positive side of assimilation. Then there is the other where you are either losing things or repressing things about yourself that are, unique and not always to the betterment of whatever it is you're either working on or for yourself. So it's, I think, like I said, as an example, I think I've had more opportunity where I've seen it to assimilate in a way that has helped me improve. But I will say that obviously there are so many areas where, I will say one other thing about even assimilating when it comes to like your hair, right? For a really long time, I wanted to have very straight hair. And then actually my dad was a big like supporter of like, Shayna, but your hair doesn't have to be straight. And so, that assimilation where it's like, I needed to look the way everyone else did to be good or to be acceptable, was not actually necessary, right? I mean, to each her own, however you would like to wear your hair. I love it. But for myself, it was like fighting this losing battle of like, so why do that? So I think that assimilation, again, it's that kind of gray area that kind of combines these two different sides.
Yes. And I will say the chat is really going off about, thank you for bringing up the two sides. Thank you.
Yes, for sure.
One of my compliments in growing up in my position was, you're like one of the boys. You're really more a man. You act more like a man. And at first I'm like, I guess that's good. If my boss is telling me that's good, it's like, that must be great. And so I never cried at work. I never showed, and I'm a big crier. I never showed any of I tried to fit in to make everyone comfortable with me being the boss or something. And then, but thank goodness before I became the CEO, I learned like, you just got to be real. And that's the most appreciated part of me in my job, is that I am who I am. When I make a mistake, everyone knows I made a mistake because I say it and I apologize and I say how I'm going to fix it. And when COVID comes or something horrible comes, I do not say, I came up with this, solution. I ask everyone, well, what do you think? Well, how are we going to keep everyone safe? And I talk to my team, as you guys all talked about having strong teams and people around you. And so, just being myself was so much better than trying to be a man. And it was just easier. So being transparent and being yourself, I found over the years is way better than assimilating into any place.
Yes.
And I'm going to piggyback off of what Heather said, because I don't think I have the ability to even assimilate. I mean, I went from construction to brewing beer. And I mean, if those are not the most two male dominated industries, and I mean, come on, I couldn't hide if I could not, I had to always keep it real and be myself in these, in my business, in my careers. But it's funny because I would be sitting around a table, for construction, and they thought I was the interior decorator, and I would have to politely tell them that no, I was actually I'm building the building. So if you want to find an interior decorator, somebody to pick out your carpet and your wall coverings, you're going to have to go find that not me. I'm actually taking over the entire project. And with the beer, you know, it's the same thing. It's I go to an account, and it takes me 5 to 7 minutes. I've timed it they think, first of all, they don't, when I say beer, I need to speak to the beer manager. They're trying to figure out, okay, why is she in here asking for the beer manager? What does she know about beer? And then when I tell them I own a brand, then they're like, then they get confused. And so, but that gave me power. Yeah. Those conversations, like with the construction and with the beer, gave me that power. And I think that's why I knew I had to stay true to myself. In the beginning, I really tried to be like, all right, let me just try to fit in. Let me be one of the boys in, you know, construction. I said, you know what, forget that. I said, I'm not doing that. And I think it made me comfortable so that when I was going through my entrepreneurial journeys and pivoting into different careers, I said, why not brewing? Let's go for it. I can, you know, make beer just as, you know, good as the next brewer. But so I with all of that, I just say, continue to just stay true to yourself. And I think when you see someone that doesn't look like you in an industry, that's when you should really push that go button and go for it, because that means that industry is missing something incredible, like that talent of a female or that person of color that, you know, and then you become that industry's, you're like, okay, if they can do it, then I can do it. And you're going to open up so many doors that you don't even know. So yeah, I embrace assimilation. I just, you know.
I think you have a unique set of women here too, who are all entrepreneurs and leaders, where it's kind of like that's not going to be it's not a default, and it's almost a mindset where we're kind of like, we know it's there, but you kind of have to ignore it and just kind of keep doing. But I would not want to ignore the fact that there are so many instances where you feel, and I will say at the beginning of my career, when I was in, you know, I would say the workplace and being an executive assistant, right? These kinds of things where it's like, what exactly was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to dress a particular way? You know, was I supposed to talk a particular way? And sometimes that is helpful. Sometimes it is not, right? And it is really up to us to use that strength within us again to decide whether or not that's okay to keep that structure there, or start to break it down and ignore it.
Mm-hmm. And I love what's been said too, because Elisa, what you're describing is creating more data points in people's mind to associate you as someone who belongs there. And I think the human brain just so quickly wants to see things and create a response or create an answer with them and just keep moving on and be efficient. But with you and your presence and all of our presence, just saying like, okay, no, hold on, slow down. I am not a part of this like schema or this group that you might think I am. I'm not I'm not the interior designer. I'm actually like running the show. And so having to create space to slow down people's narratives and really make sure that we're intentional in like how we're not assimilating to certain things that people want us to, and always having such a strong, right, what Shayna is saying, strong sense of self. Like, I know who I am, and I will make other people recognize me for that and for that strength.
So true.
Yeah, I'm super inspired by all of your responses. And even for myself, I'm sitting here like, that's right. Tap in more, and it's just, it's these moments right now that we're having this type of discussion that we need in our community. So many folks think that they're alone, or that you're not alone, and you're not bugging out. You really can say no. You have strength. You need to tap into it. And this is just amazing. I can't thank you ladies enough for being honest and on this call. For me, it's snowing. Well, it might be raining now, but it's a cold Saturday. And for those of you who are home tuning in, I thank you so much. It looks like we are out of time. I wish we could continue this discussion. I want to thank all of you ladies for being a part of this discussion. And to you all back home watching, it's been my pleasure hosting today's Strength Within Me virtual brunch. I also would like to thank our sponsors, Warner Media and the Doris Duke Foundation. But don't go anywhere. Stay right where you are. I would love for us to give you all a sneak peek at Long Wharf's Playwriters World presentation. So in just a second or two, we'll get that going. And again, ladies, thank you. To everyone at home, thank you. And stay there.
Been the highlight of my week every week. It's actually given me the confidence in my writing. You know, before joining the group, I didn't really consider myself a writer. I kind of like dibbled and dabbled in it. But now hearing feedback and being in the room with other writers, it's kind of just given me that spark to put the pen to paper again and really create some magic. I would like to see authentic African American stories. I feel like we have begun to see more of ourselves on stage. However, I still think there's some stereotypical messages in what's shown. So I'd like to see more authentic, loving African American stories on stage. Love to see more joy for our people. And that's not to take away from the pain that we've endured, because you only know joy when you know sadness, when you know pain. But I'd like to see more like, Cinderella stories, happy endings for our people. It happens. I'm here, so I feel like I'm a Cinderella story.
The playwriters have influenced my writing in a sense that I have brought myself back to my writing, back to my roots as a playwright. And I'm really excited to bring myself back to my roots and have that affirmation that I'm a writer, that I'm a good writer. My voice is still needed and relevant, and there are folks who want to hear the stories that are important to me. I think current issues, especially surrounding assimilation and gentrification, are so very important for the American theater to amplify, because we are living in an age, especially in the American theater, where we're having a bit of an identity crisis, where there are factions in this country that understand life to be true in this way, and there are factions in this country that understand a totally different narrative and live a totally different truth. So when we're holding social issues like assimilation and gentrification in particular, these issues that Dreamhouse and the merit system are highlighting and amplifying, we really are starting a conversation within our community, for our community, to discuss and come to terms with the truth of these factions as social issues. And that's the power of American theater, to get hot bodies in a room and give them a narrative that may be their lived experience or may not, and ask folks to examine it. We've all had this shared experience. What do we make of it, and how do we bring the betterment? Is that the thing? I don't know. How do we then bring the positives from that conversation, the revelations that come out of those conversations around theater, out into the world and do good with it?
Like, that's the kind of thing that I've really gotten, that's really come out of this program for me, is like all these collaborations and new friends, like genuine friends that have come out of this program. The institution having been stagnant, part of the stagnation is because who's been telling stories, and young people and people who haven't had playwrights who haven't had their careers established yet, people who don't have agents, people who don't have like the access to the industry, all have stories to tell, and important stories to tell, and told well. And those are the stories that need to be heard, because most of those people are also LGBT, people of color, like all neurodivergent. Those are the people that don't have those access to those resources to get those kinds of stories told.
The diversity, like, I can't emphasize that enough, of people of every color, all sexes, genders, however you identify. And I hope
Yes.
see more inspiration. It's important for people who are wealthy and who are less affected financially by COVID to see and hear stories of people who are struggling, who have lost their jobs, who are struggling through COVID times, and to let them see how these people are struggling and have a better understanding to contribute to certain causes. There's higher levels of abuse and frustration of being oppressed or poor or not having at this time. If you already didn't have before COVID, you are more affected now. So it's important for those stories to get out so that people can continue to give and contribute.
It's been a lightning bolt. It's a battery charge in the back. If we introduce new works to really show where people, because that's the role of the theater, to kind of show where we are, it's a mirror. It's a constant mirror. Yeah, it has to be. So I think the theater can play a part in bringing awareness to both sides, to the side that's gentrifying, they look at it without any negative. It's pure opportunity for the most part. And then you have the people who are being gentrified, and then they're kind of like in this perpetual victim stance. So there's a balance that the theater can strike. I think a common ground is needed for some conversation, so that there's not that, but just some more communication around it. I think it needs to be some information around that. I think it's coming. I hope it's not too late, but I think it's coming. But I'd love to see the theater dive in that, and just. That's what I want to see the theater start doing. I don't. Just as soon as I come in the door and sit down, punch me in the face with something great, and then take me on a freaking ride.
Beautiful. Another virtual round of applause for our moderator, Azaria, and our panelists, Heather, Elisa, Marina, and Shayna. What a fruitful and incredibly rich conversation. And the chat, it's just explosive. I really hope you all are able to engage. And for folks who want to keep up with these ladies, Long Wharf Theater has dropped their links to all of their businesses in the chat, so you can see the work that they do, that they pioneer. You can contact them and find out how you can get involved, how you can support these wonderful, awesome folks on this call. So thank you all. And we're not done yet. The New Works Festival is still rolling down this track, okay? So I hope everyone had a fruitful brunch and are readying themselves for the rest of their day, but come back 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As we kick off our evening programming, we have a jam session by our awesome local artist, Paul Bryant Hudson, and some amazingly dope local artists with him. He's gonna get us, they're gonna get us in the jam, ready for our next feature production, which is Dream House by Eliana Pipes. You're not gonna wanna miss it. I've watched it. I got a sneak peek of what they have cooking up for Dream House. It is incredible. And a post-show discussion with the playwright and director immediately following the performance. And then tomorrow, Sunday, early afternoon, we will have a roundtable discussion featuring some artistic directors from across the nation. And that will be moderated by our artistic director, Jacob Padron. And we'll be having a really great conversation about new work development in the field and what it means. And you're not going to want to miss it. So thank you all for supporting Long Wharf Theater. Thank you again, Azaria, and all of our panelists. This has been really, really fruitful. And we hope to see you later on today and tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.